I'm very grateful for the community I've gathered so far because while hearing one MS story can be very helpful, you're not going to fully connect to your own scenario by just hearing one story because of how unique the disease is in each person that has it. It's more going to be like taking different experiences from different people's stories and kind of connecting them all.
The MS Positive podcast is a platform where people living with multiple sclerosis come to share everything else they do with their lives aside from being an MS patient. Among our guests are artists, singers, bloggers, actors, authors, DJs, and much more. And yeah, also health professionals because we have to stay in the know. We're more than MS. Hello, and welcome to the MS Positive podcast. Today, we have Brodie McCartan. He is the founder of We Have MS Too, a safe space for children of parents with multiple sclerosis to share their story, ask questions, and connect with those with similar experiences. He's a high school senior who enjoys spending time with friends and family, especially when it involves being active outdoors, like hiking, skiing, and playing spikeball. Michelle McCartan is with him today. Mom. Michelle was born and raised in Buffalo, New York. After graduating, she began her career teaching third grade and then specialized in gifted education. Michelle was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2006. She feels MS was very manageable for many years. However, as she became significantly more symptomatic beginning in 2020, she had to leave her profession. Thank you for being here and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having us.
Much.
Let's start with Brodie. Tell me more, a little bit of a background story. How did you come up with the idea, this great idea that you had of founding We Have MS Too, an online space for children that live with parents that have multiple sclerosis? Can you tell me how did you come up with that? How did you find the need of a support group kind of thing for children caretakers? And I'm curious to know if you have visited any support group in the past yourself or with your mom.
I want to answer both parts of that question. So the first part you asked, like, how did I come up with the idea? What initially sparked it? And I do have to say, I give a lot of that credit to my dad. So my mom was diagnosed with MS around the same time I was born. But around the time that COVID hit, and especially as I was transitioning into high school, her symptoms started to worsen a lot. She had to go from walking to using a cane to this walking bike called the A-Linker, and then eventually from A-Linker to wheelchair. And with this decrease in mobility and just like overall ability to do things around the house, get outside the house, there came a lot of change. Me and my sister would have to step up to a lot of chores that we normally wouldn't have to step up to. If my mom had fallen or she needed help getting somewhere, we would kind of have to pause what we were doing in our life to go and help out. When you think about like the specific moments, it's a very short pause. It's very like, oh, I can go help her out with this and get back to my life. But then eventually, as the disease progresses, it kind of accumulates, and you're just having to get used to kind of this like constant like bouncing in and out of your routine. And that change can be a lot. I've definitely learned to deal with it. But I do have a lot of sympathy for my sister who is sort of having to deal with this change at a younger age. And
just a lot of tasks that kids their age don't have to deal with, and you know what moms always do. So it kind of happened quickly.
So my dad recognized these symptoms too, and obviously it's affected him because it's his wife and he works a job the full day, but he is having to keep his phone on hand, checking on my mom, make sure she's doing okay. And he'll even have to come home sometimes and help when either me or my sister aren't home or we're not able to help her. And my dad kind of brought up the idea to me that if I were able to kind of connect with my community of MS caretakers, kids who are undergoing the same change, it can make an impact. And so the idea sat with me for a while, and it was about middle of high school when I really started to try to put this plan into action. And so I'm going to get to the second part of your question now, where you asked, like, have me and my mom gone to any support groups? When did I realize that there was kind of a lack of those groups for children? So me and my mom have not been to an official support group, but I do give my mom credit. And we kind of talked about this off camera, that the disease can be very hard to talk and open up about. And I give my mom a lot of credit for being open about her disease and using the army around her to the best of her ability. She had a strong presence on social media where she'd post about her disease, sort of her progression with it, and how she's making the most of her life despite the changes that the disease is bringing about. I mean, seeing my mom do that and seeing her like take pride in her local community kind of gave me the courage to do the same. And so I first started out by kind of looking into the National MS Society because I know they host a lot of support groups, and I was looking into some of the things that they offered, especially in my area. And while they did offer a lot of support groups, I think they even offered a support group for parents of MS, but there was nothing specifically for the children of those parents. And early into my kind of development of the organization, I was actually able to contact them and have a Zoom meeting with a representative from National MS Society. She was very amazing. She gave me some great resources, but she did confirm, like, we really like don't have a set support group for these children that have to deal with it. And I decided that that's something I should start.
Thank you for that, Brody. Thank you. The first part of your answer, where you mentioned how MS not only affects the patient, but it actually impacts the whole household unit. I understand where you're coming from. I also live with teenagers, and it's been a wild ride, honestly, because it affects their daily life. I am also out of commission sometimes, and I have my little accidents here and there. So I completely understand. The fact that you started this as a support group leader myself, and I work very close to the National MS Society. This is the reason why I wanted to have you on the show, because it really caught my attention, because I know that there are no groups available for children. So I appreciate your effort and your initiative, because definitely it was something that was missing. And I really hope that you can take this, to the next level, because I think you're doing a great job. And the initiative only, the fact that you notice that there is a lack of support for the children and the caretakers in general, because I don't see groups for just caretakers. I might be mistaken, but I have not honestly seen one. In my group, I try to invite caretakers as well, because they definitely need support. They are in this with us, and it's not a fun ride. So there's a lot that the children have to take on at an early age. Like mom said, Michelle, you said that sometimes Sally has to do things that normally, she wouldn't. If
I like that.
right, they have to jump in and help with chores and
Yes.
things that take their time. But I'm glad that you guys are together in this. It's something to admire. So thank you for what you're doing, Brody. Michelle, I always ask the guest to share as much as they want about their MS story. How did you realize that you had MS? How was the process? What were your symptoms? Basically, how were you diagnosed?
Well, it was actually when I was pregnant with Brody that I started noticing that my hands were numb, and the doctor thought it was carpal tunnel and nobody worried anything about it. It'll go away. So after birth, it didn't go away. And I had gone out for a run because I used to love to run, and my arms were super itchy. Thought that was really odd. My sister in law, who's a doctor, had recommended to go see a neurologist. And what I thought was interesting was when you're diagnosing MS, for the most part, it's just eliminating other things that it could be. So, that's what we did. But having the MRI, I think, kind of really confirmed it, matched up with the symptoms. And I was diagnosed relatively quickly, which I think is great because I hear a lot of the opposite out there in the MS community. So I was diagnosed pretty quickly. like I'd mentioned in the introduction, it was very manageable. I was teaching full time. I was momming full time. And, there were times where I may have gotten tired, but like I said, manageable. And I would be able to work around those moments. It wasn't until 2020 that things started to really kind of spiral. And like Brodie said, it kind of went with my mobility first, where I just kind of went downhill. I do have primary progressive, which is the more unique of the MS diagnoses. And that just kind of reflected my story, how it kind of just slowly, my left leg and then my right leg. And then I would be getting tired more often. So, initially with my MS, most people didn't even know, and you'll hear that a lot. They didn't know. And I was happy with that. I didn't want them to know. I never wanted to be a poster girl for MS. I just wanted to be me. And unfortunately, as it progressed, that wasn't my choice anymore. So, like Brodie said, I was a little more open with it, which people really appreciated more than I ever thought they would. So, part of it was me starting out just for my friends and family, letting them know how I was. And it kind of blew up into this, online community. And going back to what he's doing, we never really talked about it much. And this whole initiative of his has really opened that up to a lot of conversations in our family. So that's good. I think I answered the questions. Yes.
You did.
Okay, good.
Yes, you did. So you were pregnant with Brodie when your symptoms started, and when you got the diagnosis, he was born already. Did they do MRIs with your while you were pregnant?
No. When I was pregnant, we just thought it was the carpal tunnel. Everything's going to be just fine. So when I had given birth and the tingling didn't go away, and then I had that experience with the itching, and, I kind of went right away, right to the neurologist. And that's when they started doing the tests, and we were able to eliminate, and the MRI showed the lesions, and it all matched up. So, like I said, quick diagnosis, got on a DMT immediately and learned different lifestyle hacks, and, kind of went along my way. It was not a devastating diagnosis by any means, because I still felt like me. I was still doing most of the things that I should be doing and wanted to be doing until I wasn't. Then it started getting devastating.
Yeah, I feel the same way. When I was diagnosed, was very functional. Although my diagnosis came after a full paralysis, I was bedridden, and so I had to relearn all my basic skills and learn how to walk and do, brush my teeth. So it was something that was very shocking. No, I've never experienced being not capable of doing everything that I usually do. And I am an action person, so I'm always involved in a lot of things and doing a bunch of things. And I wear a million hats, shuffling, all kinds of things. And then all of a sudden, I am paralyzed. And so after I recovered about 95% of my function. So it was pretty good. Nobody could tell. And that went on for about 3.5 years. I was doing fine. So I said, I got this. This is a mess. I got this. And then I feel you when you say, then it started to feel devastating after 3.5 years, when I started to deteriorate physically, and I have mobility issues as well. I am not wheelchair bound, but I could be, because my right side doesn't work. I have severe weakness. But thanks to my awesome brace, I am still ambulatory. But the truth is, when I take it off, I can barely walk. So I could say that I could be in a wheelchair. I just have the this blessing that came in my life, which is my KAFO, and it has helped me to stay ambulatory, and I can move around and I can drive. All right. So you were diagnosed during your pregnancy or afterwards, pretty close to when he was born. But then you still had another child. You had Sally, and I would like you to tell me how did you navigate that decision to become pregnant again, put your body to the stress of a pregnancy with MS in the way. How did that play out for you?
Yeah, it's kind of funny you asked that because I don't think about it much, but my appointments, because I was manageable, were pretty much every year. And every year my neurologist would say, "Are you going to get pregnant again?" And every year I would be like, "No, my husband and I have talked about it. We had this beautiful child right here and we didn't think we needed another child and we were happy." So every year he would ask, and every year I would say no. And then one year he asked and I said no. And I came home and spoke to my husband and said, "Yeah, I said no, but what do you think we should?" I mean, I was getting older at that point because they're 6 years apart. And we said, "Okay, let's go for it." And before we could change our mind, I was pregnant. So the pregnancy was wonderful. I mean, they do say that pregnancy has this magical way of taking away your symptoms. It was a wonderful pregnancy, wonderful birth. I was able to go on my DMT immediately after. So it was almost like, after breastfeeding, I guess breastfeeding has a magical effect too. But shortly after that, I was back and there was a seamless path there. So I guess I'm one of the lucky ones when it comes to the whole second child thing. But yeah, now we have Sally and it was perfect.
That's nice. You guys also mentioned Dad. Chris is his name, correct?
Yes.
Brody, you went over a little bit how your father also helps around when he has to. He sometimes comes home to help around when something happened. So this question is for both of you. In terms of your support system that includes Sally and Chris, can you tell me how much do you think it has affected Dad and also his part? Like, what is it that he's involved in when it comes to the dynamic of the house, and has he had to make any changes in his like work life or things like that?
Overall, short answer, my dad has been incredibly helpful. He has sort of had to adapt to this unexpectancy of the disease, just maybe like having to come home from work one day, or if me and Sally aren't home or we can't do something for my mom, he'll kind of have to pause what he's doing to help out. And I do give him credit for doing a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to
Literally.
I literally and figuratively. Um, just with a lot of the stuff that's more time consuming and maybe harder to navigate for me and my sister. For example, helping her shower, helping her use the bathroom, lifting her up out of awkward positions whenever she falls. And and I do give him a lot of credit for that. One thing I did want to touch on though, I'm going to go back to something my mom said about how she was very vocal about her disease, but she also didn't want to be the poster girl. And I think this idea can kind of connect to my dad's approach to my mom's MS because he has done a very good job of making our family experiences and making our family bonding very, very resistant to my mom's disease. We're still, it hasn't necessarily taken away our ability to have fun as a family, but it's provided new pathways in which we can have fun and bond as a family. And I think that's a big component of at least what my organization means to me is even though I talk a lot about my experience on there, I don't necessarily want people to feel pity for me,
Right.
but
Yeah.
it's more about showing how I still have this amazing family. We're still able to do these amazing things, but at the same time, we're open about the condition, but we talk less about how it's like done us dirty or how it's done us bad, but rather how we've like taken advantage of the situation in order to form new ways to bond. And I think that's a
Yes.
really important part of it.
We've had to get creative. Piggybacking on what he's saying, Chris, his dad, my husband, has been phenomenal. It's, been crazy for him. Of course, we have all these visions of what our life should be, what we should be doing, and that we can't do. So we are now looking at the things that we can do. And I'm a horrible advocate for myself. It just triggers me. So, I depend on my family to come up with these things, and we can do this. And, that's how Chris is he kind of is always like, well, we can do this. We'll figure out a way. We always figure out a way, and somehow we do. And he's been really good at also kind of absorbing some of my stress. If I'm, having one of those emotional moments, he's like, it's okay. We got this. I'm upset too, but let's just get through this. And we're here.
It's working.
I was just going to add is that my dad is very good about handling her disease from an emotional standpoint. I do give my mom a lot of credit. She's a warrior and she keeps a very positive attitude, but there are some times where she'll get emotional about it and it just makes me like very sad to see, and I'm not always sure of the best way to approach it or the best way to handle it. But my dad is very knowledgeable in that regard, and he just always knows the right way to kind of tackle these difficult situations and make sure my mom feels happy again.
Well, I can see in the strength that you show, because I'm looking from the outside. I see that you are a very strong young man, and you probably have that after your dad. So kudos to you. I mean, I think you're excellent. You're doing a great job, and it's good to have a good support system at home. So I can tell that you guys have a strong bond. So that's really really nice. I like what you said because it's something that I have applied to my life as well. That you have to find ways of still doing things, not focus so much on what you cannot do anymore. Mind your abilities and not so much your disabilities. Just focus on what you can still do and create memories with your family, regardless of, the accommodations or modifications that we all have to do. Be willing to live your life as a family and do most of the things. I guess that over time you kind of get used to, you evolve with it, and you don't fully come to terms with it, but you still make it work. Just stay together and become stronger as a family. So I'm glad that you have that, Michelle, you in particular, right? Because it's a difficult situation to be in, especially when you have your kids. Sometimes you just can't do certain things, but the fact that they are open to the accommodations that they need to do for you, it's awesome. Brodie, so changing gears here. You are a very active kid. You do cross country, swimming, and track. You also participate in clubs at school, and you have a job at a restaurant. Tell me more about you so people get to know who you really are, what you do when you are not taking care of mom, how you have kept going with your normal life as a normal teenager.
My parents have been very supportive of, obviously, like whenever they need help, I'll help them immediately. They're my priority, but they have been very supportive of letting me be a high schooler, letting me explore what I'm interested in. So I guess I'll start out with the sports. Athletics have played a big part in my life, and my dad was actually the person that got me into sports. I started playing lacrosse when I was 4 or 5,
Yeah.
and he was a big lacrosse player. But as you can see now, I've sort of shifted my gears to running, and high school running has especially been a big part of shaping who I am as a person.
Yes. I was in cross country in high school too, so he got that from me.
As far as clubs go, I'm involved in clubs at my school, and I do credit that to some of the leadership skills I've been able to sort of develop and use towards my We Have MS2 organization. Going into high school, I was very interested in kind of exploring what was out there, but I hadn't quite developed the initiative to really take on a big leadership position or start my own thing. But as I've sort of gotten involved in these clubs as my high school career has gone on, it's given me a lot of skills. It showed me what methods work as a leader. And another important thing it showed me is what my weaknesses are as a leader. I really do think that when you're interacting with humans, when you're interacting with a certain community, the only way you really truly learn is through experience, is through putting yourself out there. And so I do credit that a lot to sort of helping me both with my We Have MS2 cause and meeting these new people in my community, but also with sort of my family social interactions, which just sounds crazy because you grow up talking to your family, like you're with them your whole life. I mean, how much can they really develop? But it truly has strengthen my relationship with my parents and just my ability to kind of step up to this new social dynamic in the household.
Michelle and Brody, I would like to know what is the feedback from the online MS community that you have received after founding We Have MS too, since it's targeting the younger generations. Has it been difficult to recruit, if we can use that word, members that join your Zoom meetings? How has it been your experience with this younger generations? And I ask you because I've been doing the support groups for several years now, and I have seen that usually people that join this type of forums are older in age.
I will say there have been some difficulties recruiting, but at the same time, I'm very grateful for the community I've gathered so far because with each person that's reached out to me, I've sort of had a different unique connection with them,
Yeah.
and I've had a lot of luck with just people being willing to share their stories with me, and especially when I host these meetings, them not being afraid to talk and provide their own input. For example, this last meeting that I had in January, I was able to introduce two, a boy and a girl. They were siblings. They came from they both of their dads had MS. This is my sister Sally, by the way.
Hi, Sally. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Good.
It's good to see you, meet you.
You too.
Yeah, but both of them had shared their stories with me, but hadn't really met each other. And one of the things about this child community is like numbers are ultimately going to be key. While hearing one MS story can be very helpful, you're not going to fully connect to your own scenario by just hearing one story because of how unique the disease is in each person that has it. It's more going to be like taking different experiences from different people's stories and kind of connecting them all. And so even though I'm still like trying to get those numbers up and bring in more younger support, I'm very grateful for what's been done so far. I've been able to discover people local, in different states, and it's just really cool the diversity that we have so far. And I think we have a lot to work with. And you also mentioned the online community, and I'm very grateful for the online support. I think I've gained a lot of adult support as well as just like a lot of accounts similar to yours that just like promote the cause and are interested in teaching about the disease. So I'm very grateful and I feel like I have a strong place to kind of work from.
Sure.
It is difficult to recruit because we've, just through me and people I know, the moms or the dads would be like, "Oh my gosh, this is a great idea. I so want my kid on this." And then the kid's just a little more apprehensive about it. But I will say just from speaking with Brody is that when the kids are on there, it is so valuable for them to meet each other. And even though their stories are different, they can connect like that. So it's starting to each month as he's doing this, just getting different people and different connections. Connecting with you has been really exciting for us because now we're starting to meet people that we really don't know and that are completely new. So we really appreciate you reaching out to us.
Oh, sure. I really admire, like I said in the beginning, the work that Brody and you are doing.
That is him. He's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you're a very smart kid. Mom, you have done a great job with Brody. I mean, I hear him talking and he's like a grown up, an adult. He's very mature. So, yeah, you've done really great with him. You should be proud of your boy. You're doing great, Brody.
Proud of
Thank you so
himself.
much.
Yeah, I have boys myself, so I connect very closely to your relationship with Brody, and I really like what he's doing. Brody, have you thought? You mentioned earlier that you had a meeting with a staff member from the National MS Society, and I wonder if you are or have considered to affiliate your group to the National MS Society and become an official group leader for the society. Is that something that you see yourself doing in the future?
Definitely. So I mentioned to you earlier that when I was sort of getting my ideas together for this organization, getting it started, I met with a staff member of National MS Society. About beginning of my senior year, I had another meeting with a representative, and this is when the club was sort of up and running. It was actually when we were approaching our first Zoom meeting, and I was talking to a staff member. And first of all, National MS Society, I just really appreciate how willing they are to talk to you. Like,
Yes.
they've been very helpful, very, very flexible. And I do appreciate that a lot because I've had some conflicts with sort of scheduling calls with them. I've had stuff come up. They've been very flexible with that and very great about like setting up a time that's convenient. And when I talked to them the second time, they mentioned that I could come in to some of these other support group meetings, talk about my cause a little bit, and just become more involved with them. But the only thing is, I have to turn 18 in order to do that. And so
I figured.
I'm still waiting on that. It's coming up. But once I do turn 18, they told me about a lot of cool opportunities. And I hope to sort of take advantage of those when I turn 18.
Yes. And actually doing what he's doing, but through the MS Society.
Definitely.
So, but he has to be 18 and, which is good. I think that this time preparing as a 17-year-old, he's going to have this all ready to go by 18.
For sure. So, how long have you been holding these meetings on Zoom?
So I had my first meeting in September, and I've been doing them monthly.
And how do you like it so far? Do you think it's a lot of work, or do you think it's easy peasy? Because for me, it's a lot of work.
No, I really like it.
You do?
Are you talking about the meetings in particular, or
Yeah, the Zoom meetings, in general, like.
Definitely 100%? Because I really just like to make it conversational.
Yeah, he doesn't do
It's-
all the work. He really encourages them to talk, and that's, I guess, makes it easier.
Yeah, and I definitely do want to take leadership in this organization.
I'm happy. That makes me happy. That's the answer I'm looking for.
I really do want to take leadership in these meetings, and I do want to have that leadership role. But end of the day, I also want to leave the floor open to the people talking. I want them to kind of guide the conversation as they feel fit, and most importantly, I want them to connect with each other like I've connected with each of them.
So, what are the future plans for We Have MS2? Since you mentioned that you want to take the leadership role, do you see it as a formal support group in person or maybe like an online forum and becoming more of a national group for the younger generations?
So I definitely do want to add an in-person component to it. And yes, the online forum has been great because it's connected me to people from different locations. But I think that this different locations thing can also be really helpful when I can sort of have an in-person component to it, because it'll allow each of us to kind of expand it into our respective communities, get schools involved, churches involved, wherever we see fit and wherever we think our story would best be shared.
I think that's fantastic. I mean, you can even have a hybrid group, which are also a thing. You can have a Zoom meeting going on while you are in person. That's also an option. It's a little bit of more work, but it's actually really interesting, and you can reach more people. So I want to thank both of you. I mean, it's been great chatting with you. Again, I want to express my admiration to this young man, Mr. Brodie. Mom, keep it up. I mean, he's doing wonderful. I really wish the best to the both of you, Michelle, with your health, Brodie, with your project. I really hope that you can join the National MS Society and become an official group leader. I think you're doing great. I think you will do even better. So, thank you so much for being here. And I will definitely keep an eye on your project. I'm going to try my best to get my kids involved. Um, Thank you so much for what you're doing in the community. This is something that was highly needed. So, we appreciate, and I personally appreciate your effort and your initiative. So, Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you so much for having us.
Sure, it's been our pleasure.